First destination, Fort William. Second destination, Inverness. Third destination, John O'Groats. 317 miles, so that's quite a long way. I'm making pasta on a rock at 11:30 at night. What are you doing? I've got some chicken in there and some beef, brisket beef, and I got this as well. It's one of those jets, although it doesn't always work. Got one of these. I'm not being very stealthy with this light. I saw a light earlier on the hillside, so I know something like that. About half of bloody Fort William could see me here. I didn't realise that. So, I'm behind foliage, whatever. No, if you go down the front, you can see the tent on the hillside. Yeah, so much for stealth. Morning. Just having breakfast on what I'm now calling Ant Rock, because so many ants on this rock here. It's a very handy place to sit on, but it's just ants. Having some cocoa pops and some coffee. The tent is fine. I would say a nice day of rest, although it was amazingly sunny. But I was glad I wasn't hiking because it was so hot and sunny. You know, it was the kind of weather, it was like 23 degrees. It's like, it shouldn't be 23 degrees in May. Backing up today, heading for the Great Glen Way. I've scoped that out. There doesn't seem to be a conic hill until kind of like maybe third of the way in or midway, and you can choose to go up it if you want. Yeah, you've got the main route and high routes. You can choose to go up into the mountains, and it's like into the mountains bits, and like maybe not. I don't know. Sunny Fort William, taking the tent down. I know some people are like, oh, I don't like things hanging off my pack. The problem is when you've got wet stuff, what do you do with it? Well, I suppose you just tie it to the pack and hope it dries. Because you have it hanging out the side pockets, as we found with the water bottle, it gets ripped out by some branches or something. I'm glad it's not boiling as it was yesterday. Do you know what ship has visited? I know there's some cruise ships that do the Loch tours. So, probably one of them. I expected grief from the wild camping because I stupidly googled it. The results were saying, people in Fort William, wild camping, no camping sign everywhere, which is not actually true. There are some near the end of the trail. I think the problem is, I assume, is that people camping close to people's homes, which is not what you should be doing anyway. They were like just dropping somewhere and going, oh. Whereas I spent hours trying to find a good site that wasn't overlooked by anyone. I wasn't going to really bother. Very obvious wild camping, like on the hill, and just be seen from miles around. Even in my grow, even from the local kids. The answer is, if you're respectful and don't take the piss and don't try and camp in someone's garden or something, and you camp up on Cow Hill, no one will bother you. I've got my rubbish, leaving no trace people. Obviously I'd taken away all this other extra stuff before, I didn't find anything else. I need to go and find some water, I need to go and find a toilet, and we'll head from the old fort on the Great Glen Way. I have to say I'm glad I didn't do this 2 days ago. I went up the alternate way up Cow Hill, because it's pretty foul. At the entrance to Fort William is along this road. You go through this road, it's very strange. So at the start of the Great Glen Way at the old fort, next to the Morrisons and the multi-lane highway. It's so funny how it says, historic area, no camping and no fires, but we can build a railway and a highway and a Morrisons on it. But it's a historic area, so don't camp. So we'll see how far we can get. Certainly I want to get well out of Fort William today. I have good feelings about the Great Glen. It's going to be a bit easier than the West Highland. I have a feeling that might be the case. Let's see. The journey of 1,000 miles, well, 70 odd miles starts at the Brewer's Fayre and the McDonalds. There's a few miles before you get out of all the conurbations and stuff. One long industrial estate stretching along the road. Prison block or housing scheme. I think it's a housing scheme. More of these strange hikers on the paths. Well, they don't have backpacks and little walking sticks. Must be day hikers. Hello. Sorry. They're having a drink. It's a hot day. Even the bridges, the railway bridges, are castles. There is a castle there to match the castle bridge. I suppose every home here is a McMansion, but there are lots of these McMansion-y bungalows around here. There's a nice, very pretty view. It's mad to think I was up there. Maybe below that pylon, looking over there. And there's the ship that keeps making that bellowing noise. And we're heading this way. And bye bye suburbia, I hope. As always, I'm facing roads and houses and people mowing and noise and just all of that of modern living. I just want to push on and then live with the consequences later on my feet. I just want to get away. I want to get out. I want to get out of this. Shipwreck! Shipwreck! Another one. That's actually on the map, actually. That one. This is the Caledonian Canal. And just behind me is Corpach. Fort William 4. Where we came from today. Hill. There's Fort William in the background. And this Caledonian. I don't mind camping by a canal as long as it's quiet, not full of screaming children, barking dogs and people doing construction work, which seems to be everywhere is doing construction work around here. This area is like a test department gig, constantly hitting scaffolding posts. Even nicer to leave it behind. Even nicer on a day like this. Even today, a guy tried to make a joke on Fort William High Street. He was like, "Oh, you've got your skis, mate." And it was like, that's not even funny. Ski poles don't get like that. So I was like, what? That's a lot of lochs. A lot of lochs to going to a loch. A lot of lochs going through a loch. A lot of lochs going to like. This is Neptune staircase at Banavie. I'm going to the loch. Yeah, I've not seen one of these before. The staircase where the canal goes up a hill. Wow. Ice cream. Really nice ice cream. I needed to have an ice cream. It's so hot. And I wanted to get one from like a co-op shop. It's much nicer to have a proper ice cream. Pistachio and... I thought as I was on Neptune staircase I had to get a green. I was going to have a mint. I was like, oh, pistachio. A lot of the West Highland Way, and I think some of this, is on the old military roads, and apparently were invented to allow government troops, a bit like Roman roads, to control rebellious Highlanders in the 18th century. Designed by Thomas Telford. Yeah. I used to live near Roundbridge a long time ago. And it took 21 years to build the Caledonian Canal. So, yeah. So that you do have to find the Neptune circuit. I wasn't planning to. Thankfully we've got away from a lot of all that shiz. What's not so great is that wind. And also I'm not seeing a massive amount of camping options. Maybe when we get away from the canal a bit. No. It's 4:30, so it's still plenty of time. Oh, Met weather. It's supposed to be sunny and not windy. It is instead chucking it down and blowing a gale. What? I don't know what the hell's going on with this weather. Yeah, these woods over here. It's a bit like, yeah, certainly people have been camping there. But if I have to, I'll jump over the fence. I'm sure someone will go and destroy it, because it's like, as soon as you say something like, oh, peaceful bliss, then someone comes and messes it up. But yeah, oh, this is what I wanted. This is what I needed. Not sirens and screaming children and dogs. I love the deep blue colour of the canal. It's a very wide canal, but it's still a canal at this point. And it's back to sunshine. Weather, what are you doing today? It's a Scottish Highland shuffle, isn't it? Still walking along the Caledonian Canal, which we will do so until Gairlochy. And then we come to the wonderfully named Loch Lochy. It should be sort of Lochy. I'm sure they're doing something. And the idea was to avoid having to go to the north, and then you have a route through. It was very dangerous going to the north. Well, it's sort of quite a lot of perils and bad weather and lost ships. A lot of fishing people just, rather than pay for the canal, went for the north, and the boats got bigger, too big for the canal. Poor canal. That seems to be a common theme in this video. I'm doing a few of those, like, oh, we did this, but then it was immediately stopped being a thing, or it failed quite quickly. It's far from a fail, really. So I'm going to head for Moy Bridge. There's also another Cottmore campsite put into my map. I'm now on the OS map. I've got like an OS guide. I wish I got the Harvey guide for the Great Glen Way, because actually lists the informed campsites. My OS map doesn't, but Osmand, the map app I use, does have them on there. Quite often they'll say campsite, and it turns out not to be a campsite, it's an informal campsite, but these are two informal campsites. And there's one on the actual loch itself, so hopefully there's no loch exclusion zone BS. I hope so. I was told Fort William had one, but I saw no sign of it. Lots of unofficial signs saying you can't well camp, but a bit like putting a fence up. It doesn't actually mean anything. Hence why I'm like quite bold about, I'll just jump over a fence, because the law is kind of behind me unless I damage the fence. So just having a rest. And yes, I did check this site, but it's very stony. It would actually make a good campsite if it wasn't. I can't even get my trekking poles in. I'm surprised how few hikers are on this route. There is quite a few day hikers and lots of bicycle riders. Dog walkers, obviously. Less now, but there's a fair few. I've seen one, maybe two people who seem to actually hiking it. This compared to the hundreds of people who are doing the West Highland Way. And I would question why is the West Highland Way got that cachet that the Great Glen doesn't? I don't know. I feel sad for the Great Glen, but it's also more for me. Less strange and strained conversations with French, Dutch and German people. It might be different when I get to the Moy Bridge or the Gairlochy campsite. It might be different. Might see people then, but it doesn't seem to be a lot of people who are actually hiking it. And also the question where you get water from. Because yes, I can filter it from the canal. The danger is, how do you get to the canal? Look at that. You see the high bank. It is shelving and there's kind of rocks underneath it, so it isn't suddenly going to an incredibly steep drop, but it's still a bit like, that's going to be fun. See if we can find streams or something. Also, it's not, looking at it, it's fairly clear, but it's not, it's canal water. It's Loch water, canal water. Yeah, I think I'll be able to get down now. The danger is getting back up again.
And also I could pretend that I'm doing the Cape Wrath Trail, because I forgot the Cape Wrath Trail starts Fort William and follows the Great Glen for a certain way. Whereas John O'Groats is like the east coast, Cape Wrath is the west coast. But Cape Wrath is an amalgam of existing trails and unmarked ones. So it's quite hardcore because you really have to know what you're doing. Some of it like this is quite easy. You go off into the wilds and you have to navigate on your own and there's no markers. So yeah, I'm not doing that. I have to say I'm a bit about one of the high sections on this because it goes off and it doesn't seem to follow an existing trail, and I don't know how marked it is, and you know, I don't really want to get lost, to be honest. A hillside like that. There's also this Invergary link as well. The Cape Wrath go and break off there. I like to follow trails at the moment. That might change. I would like to do more wilderness camping, but I feel like I have to get more experience. The live stream was like an example of that, where I forced myself to go, you know, and it was fun, but also a bit scary, and the tent got completely pissed on, and the tent survived perfectly fine, but I was a bit like, you know, so you have to kind of get to the point where you know your equipment, you know your abilities. At the moment I'm testing both of those, really. Very beautiful. Just past the Loy sluices, two local rivers, the Loy and the Moy. I think Moy Bridge is where one of the official campsites are. At last, starting to get worried that there's no rivers. I think you probably could camp down there, along the Loy. A bit easy in getting water from this. It was here, maybe. It's a bit unsheltered. There's a lovely edge. There I go. Shipwreck! And it's by where we're camping. This is an amazing location to camp. It's one of the unofficial campsites. It's got a stream, and it's got a beach, and it's got a shipwreck over there. And everything's set up. They have a lighthouse as well. Is that a lighthouse? And we have this scene. Wow. I was just thinking about the people over there.
I would think, you know, you're out in the middle of, not in the middle of nowhere, but your neighbour's like not really your neighbour.
I was looking the light and envying them. That would be a really nice place to live. That's a hell of a view. Essentials. Oh, this is such a beautiful campsite. I mean, how many campsites have this view? This is Gairlochy, and this is Loch Lochy, which is a very funny name. That's where I was camping. That's the coffee suddenly. Let's see if we can find a shop. I know there's a shop coming up. There doesn't seem to be very many shops in this area, so I have to go with that for a day or two. Never a good night. I had the bed the wrong way around. You know, like I couldn't work out where, which is the highest bit, and so I had to switch bed plan halfway through. I was a little bit cold, and my legs were hurting a lot, so I kept waking up. Visitors. I'm just packing up. Met up with a fellow hiker who's a Danish lady, and I can't pronounce her name at the moment, so that's a bit embarrassing. This is her first time hiking, so it's like wow. The West Highland Way had so much stuff, like every 5 to 10 miles of something, most of it. This feels very much more off the beaten track. Not so many people. Some people have been coming through, but we also have stuff like this. Where else do you have shipwrecks and lighthouses? Oh. Yeah, it's rather waterlogged, otherwise I'd be tempted to sleep in it. Gairlochy Loch on the Loch Lochy. It's far too many lochs. It said it wasn't going to be flat, otherwise I was so tempted to camp here next to the ship. If this was in England, this would have flowers in it. But very low.
That was the first of the Great Glen Way and the 9th in the Scotland trip in total. We travelled a distance of 11.2 miles, trip total of 105 miles. And to everyone, what amazing campsites have you found? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please click like and click the subscribe button. On screen now will be the previous day of the trip, the West Highland Way, until the next day of the trip is available. I hope you are well and I'll speak to you soon.